This is Business and Technology in Tennessee podcast brought to you by InfoSystems, and we're on episode 3. I'm Josh Davis, Marketing Director at InfoSystems, and I have a special guest with me today, Sammy Lowdermilk, Program Coordinator of Tech Goes Home Chattanooga.
Correct.
Through the Enterprise Center.
Yes, that is correct.
Welcome.
Great to be here.
Right off the bat, can you just throw out, for people who may not know, what is the Enterprise Center?
Sure. So the Enterprise Center is a nonprofit here in town. It's located in the Edney Innovation Building on Market Street. We have 3 core missions, one being the Innovation District, which is a new concept for Chattanooga. Mm-hmm. Another being research and development around our gigabit internet. We have this great speed. Now what do we do with it? So we work with UTC, EPB, and some other institutions to try to figure out some nifty ways to use that speed we have. And then our third core mission is digital equity, which is the programs under where I fall in to Tech Goes Home, and a few other programs we have.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you and I have known each other for 5 or 6 years, and just, it's a kind of a Chattanooga thing, I guess. You bump into each other, people, random things around town, and you get to loosely keep up with, I guess we probably via LinkedIn and Twitter and all of the various social media, you get to see all of the, things that other people are working on that you're connected to. And I've followed a lot of what you've done for 5 or 6 years now, and there's been several different things, but before I was kind of putting together questions for today, I went to your LinkedIn profile, and I don't remember knowing this about you, but I was scrolling down in your work history and saw that earlier in your career there was a distinctly political flavor to what you were doing. And
there was.
So you spent, it looked like about 10 years working for Lincoln Davis, who was a former Tennessee State Senator and U.S. House of Representatives member.
Correct.
So what got you into politics in the first place, and were you originally planning to make that a career choice?
Not at all. So I went to Freed-Hardeman University over in West Tennessee, got my social work degree, and was really interested in the policy aspect of social work, social welfare. I did an internship at the state capitol and got put in state senator at the time, Lincoln Davis's office. He was running for U.S. Congress that year. So I interned in his office, and as soon as I graduated that May, they hired me on full time to work in his state senate office. Then thankfully, he got elected to Congress, and they kept me on board.
Otherwise, your job would have ended right there.
It would have, absolutely. That's the funny thing about politics, which I would find out later on. In 2010 when he did get beat. And I did have to seek other employment.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it was a fun time for me in my life. Politics is a different animal. I don't miss a lot of it, I can tell you that. But there were some good things about it that I miss.
That was my next question, is were there experiences and things that you really took away from being that closely involved in politics early in your career that have helped you over the last few years?
Right. I guess the main benefit was a good network. Working for a U.S. congressman, you get to meet a lot of people in a lot of different areas, organizations, industries. So that has been extremely helpful over the years. It's also currently you become a little bit jaded to the system because you see it from the inside. And you see how it really works, for better, for worse. And, it's a little frustrating to dive into political discussions, knowing what you know. Because many people don't have that advantage of seeing things from that angle.
I guess politics is a form of entertainment these days, and when you've been involved in it, you've got a different perspective. It's not just entertainment to you.
Right.
So.
Well, my role specifically with the congressman at the time was to help him manage his relationship with anything within the district. So I'd set up his town hall meetings, set up meetings with industry, different organizations, develop programs that would help his constituency. And so it really fit into my desire to be in kind of the social work field, because I kind of filled that role with him. So yeah, it was a fun time, but I don't really miss it.
Yeah. So currently, and it sounded like maybe some things at the with your role at the Enterprise Center have changed or are changing, but you were, or maybe still are currently, the program coordinator for Tech Goes Home Chattanooga. And that program, the way I understand it, it kind of pulls together community partners to provide technology services toward economically challenged families, neighborhoods.
Right.
And so, prior to that, you founded, I think, 100 Girls of Code.
Correct.
And Tennessee Code Academy.
Correct.
And you also were program director, I think, at the Biz Foundry,
Right.
based out of Cookeville. And, so obviously there's a common thread throughout all of those things, and, obviously technology, but sort of the underserved or maybe overlooked, left out community that normally doesn't have access. So where does your passion for all of that come from?
I think it originates from my desire to help. I know that may sound a little cheesy,
That's
but
okay.
I'm a techie. I'm a geek, so that it merges those two together.
Yeah.
With Tennessee Code Academy, we were serving a rural area. There aren't really many resources for a lot of rural communities. So we started that for, primarily 12 to 18-year-olds. And through that, we saw that there were very few females showing up to our coding camps. And so we specifically targeted girls with a specific initiative where we brought in females to instruct the class for that same age group, and found a lot of success with that program.
That's cool.
And now I've kind of shifted into technology education, but on a lower spectrum as far as what people are actually learning. In the current program, individuals learn about the internet as a whole, what resources are available to them. So we're helping families that have possibly never had a device in their home set up Gmail accounts, learn how to use Google Suite, learn about PowerSchool, how to check their kids' grades, check on absences, helping them find jobs, develop their resumes, so on and so forth.
Yeah, that was really one of my next questions. What is Tech Goes Home Chattanooga built to achieve, and how is it that you guys are approaching it?
Right. So it's a three-prong approach. Of course, getting more devices into homes, having more families connected to the internet, and then, of course, an education around all of that. Because we feel that you can't have just one of those and be fully connected to society, to the workforce, to the educational system. We hear so often terms like the homework gap. We have several kids that are now currently getting a device in school, at least for that year, but they don't have internet at home. Their family members don't know how to use that device because they've never had a device in their home. So we're trying to address some of those issues, and we specifically target, our lower income, unemployed, underemployed, just to make sure that everybody is taking advantage of the gig city. So
yeah, having EPB is one of the partners with Tech Goes Home, right? And I know they've got the program where they provide lower cost internet access to low-income families. I don't know what the qualifications for that program are, but I mean, how much does it help to have that type of community partner behind, backing what you're doing at Tech Goes Home?
Oh, absolutely, it's helpful. We've partnered with them as well as other ISPs, Comcast, T-Mobile, AT&T, to really educate the community on those lower cost options that aren't necessarily always advertised, but are required by FCC regulations to be available to lower income individuals. So we've partnered with several of those to host events in schools, so that families can come learn about the different programs and then hopefully get connected to some sort of internet in their home.
So tell me a little bit about, you mentioned being in the schools. What are some of the events that you all put on what are they like, and what do you get to do hands-on
Right.
at these events?
So for our connectivity drives, we essentially piggyback on something else that's taken place at the school. And we'll set up with vendors or volunteers outside and actually work one-on-one with families to determine what their needs are, and based on that, what internet service works best for them. Is it a hotspot that would work better for them because they move around a lot, they have to move, or it's AT&T the best, Comcast. Of course, EPB is probably the highest speed, but it's a little bit more expensive even at the lower rate. So just helping families determine what's best for them. Through Tech Goes Home, we try to show them the usefulness of having a device and being connected. And so hopefully by the end of the program, if they don't have service at home, they see the value in it, and we can connect them at some point toward the end of the program. Specifically with Tech Goes Home, it's a train the trainer program. So we partner with schools, churches, other nonprofits to train somebody on site, and then they implement the program there at their location.
I've worked for InfoSystems and other software and IT companies around Chattanooga, and I'm not gonna lie, diversity is not really the strong suit of the IT industry in general, and especially in areas like this, and as marketing director, and a lot of times I've got control over the website, and so I see job announcements as we post job announcements, even though I'm not the one reading the resumes and considering the talent and making hiring decisions. I see the job announcements and I see a lot of the responses that come through, and it's typically what you would expect to see, predominantly male and predominantly white.
Right.
And as far as race goes, that's just based off of seeing the interviews that come through and people who actively come in and ask for a meeting and things like that.
Right.
So how does a company like InfoSystems and other IT and technology related companies approach that problem?
Right. Well, I think it starts early on, engaging in with different organizations or educational institutions in town to relay what sort of educational profile does a company like InfoSystems, what are they looking for? Are there programs that are already in place that you could modify to help with that skill set? Our participants are, for Tech Goes Home's, about 72% female, and I think we're close to 70% African American or Latino. So we have a very diverse pool of participants. That, if given certain educational leg up, would be able to be hired by a company like InfoSystems.
Yeah, and a couple of interesting things like that. And I know there's programs, and InfoSystems has sponsored and been involved in educational technology education programs in the community before, but there's such an opportunity now, and it's only getting more and more so that people can self-educate.
Absolutely.
Or, and this is especially relative to the IT field, is a lot of times a college degree or a really high cost education is not really required.
Right.
As long as you have the demonstrable skills that you can go in and put to work, and there are many ways to gain those skills. It's not a hard field to break into.
Right.
So, just knowing that, it seems like in IT, that accessibility should be able to be, bridged easier than a lot of other professions.
Right. What's
your take on that, and how do we push that message out there and get it started?
Right. I think a lot of it is educating the possible workforce, the future workforce, that you don't necessarily have to have a degree to work for a company like InfoSystems if you, again, can demonstrate your skills. There's a misconception out there that you absolutely have to have a 4, 6, your degree to break into a great paying job, and that's not the case anymore. Specifically, what we try to do with a couple of things we're working on, with Tech Goes Home being one of those, we have several different curriculum modules.
Mm-hmm.
They don't cover all of those modules, but they always have access to them. We introduce things like code.org to the younger demographic, Khan Academy to an older, more workforce oriented demographic, just to help them realize that there are some resources for them to continue learning beyond a formal applying to Chat State or UTC and going through a 2 or 4 year degree.
Yeah.
Another thing we've worked on, the mayor came to the Enterprise Center sometime back, I guess late last year, and said Chattanooga needs a code school, a boot camp, and said, could y'all make that happen? So we put out an RFP across the country. We had just 2 organizations apply. We went with the organization out of Birmingham, Alabama, and they started their first cohort this last summer here in Chattanooga. So what we're trying to do now is educate local industry about this new concept, because the boot camp concept for especially Chattanooga is very new.
Yeah.
Not so much in the Silicon Valley or New York or some of the bigger cities where there are several of these type of educational institutions. But we have one here in Chattanooga now. And when speaking to the diversity aspect, we actually set up a scholarship fund to help diversify so that everybody going through the program doesn't look like you and me.
Yeah.
And we've found some success with that. So hopefully we're going to start churning out some good, diverse programmers and coders.
That's immediately where my mind went to when you started talking about that was, maybe that's a place where InfoSystems and maybe other partners in the community could get involved, is the sponsorships or the scholarships.
Right. Absolutely.
Sponsoring scholarships for, that are specifically intended to diversify, the field. It's not an easy task to take on, but, IT is not an easy field, and look at the advancements in the IT industry just
Right.
over the last, 2 or 3 years, much less the last couple of decades. If you've got a lot of high quality people working on a problem, you're going to get some positive outcomes. So, I think what you all are doing is very good to raise awareness and to actually implement those programs.
Right.
So one question I have, but because I've never really been able to work with a lot of young people specifically related to technology. So I would imagine that it's hard to get young people to take IT seriously. And here's just one example. A few years ago, I was volunteering for a program where I would go into an elementary school that was predominantly Latino and read books to the students, just so they could hear native English speakers, and these were young, probably I would guess maybe 2nd, 3rd, 4th graders.
Yeah.
Just to hear native English speakers reading, books with more complex words than what they're probably hearing, in their daily routine. How do you, first of all, get those types of, at that age, introduced to IT and help them see that it's a real possibility and get them to take it seriously? Kids tend to, when I would ask the group of kids that I was talking to what they want to be when they grow up, it's NBA basketball player, or I want to be a famous musician, or how do you get kids to take IT seriously at a young age?
Right. Based on some research we've seen, based on successful programs both here in Chattanooga and other places, kind of that middle school age is a good time to really catch kids to kind of maybe push them certain directions with their career path, or at least make them aware of the possibilities of what's out there. When you say IT, you know, a lot of people just think of one certain thing, but IT can be, 50 to 100 different types of positions.
Oh yeah.
Doing 50 to 100 different types of things.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just a career education, just to make students aware of what the possibilities are, the pay. IT fields can bring in quite a bit of money.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about low barrier to entry, like you don't
Right.
really have to have that much of a formal education,
Mm-hmm.
and the upside of the salaries that are prevalent in the IT industry, I mean, that's a pretty attractive proposition.
Well, also now you've got a fairly large, what they call maker movement,
Mm-hmm.
allowing kids to just tinker with technology, I think is a positive thing.
Yeah.
My interest in technology has never been anything formal. It's me taking apart things at the house and trying to put them back together and figure out how they work. So I think just allowing kids to explore their curiosities, maybe have some, a little bit of curriculum or formal education around it, but give them some freedom to tinker a little bit.
Yeah. I was just thinking one day, like, new technology sometimes just bursts onto the scene, and so if you think about drones, and at first it was just like this really interesting, cool new technology. Look at this drone or helicopter I have that I can fly around. Slowly, I mean, and this has been going on for a few years. Slowly, you've seen where there's an actual job opportunity now. If you're an
Absolutely.
experienced drone pilot,
Yeah.
there's all types of work that's available to you. So, I agree, just being able to tinker with new technologies and stuff, you never know where something that could have just been your idea of a hobby leads
an
to
actual paid position.
a nice career or a position.
Right. And, 5 years ago, you would not have seen a job posting for a drone pilot.
Right.
But now with whether it's film crews, you've got, Amazon and other companies dropping things at your door
Yeah.
with drones. So, like you said, it's a changing world, and things you may be exploring, again, tinkering with now, again, maybe a hobby, but it could be something that pays 6 figures 5 or 10 years from now.
Yeah. Yeah,
So.
that's true. So this podcast is really directed toward our East Tennessee, Middle Tennessee, and surrounding regions, to business leaders, not really to the IT professional. So knowing that most of the listeners will be kind of the business professional, the business leader, maybe business owner, what are the messages that you would like to share with them from your perspective from the Enterprise Center and Tech Goes Home Chattanooga?
Sure. I think it's mainly a recognition that many families and students don't have the advantages that they probably do, as far as access to technology, access to connectivity. We have a lot of families out there that could be future employees, given the right opportunities, whether it is a certain type of education, a device, connectivity. All those are advantages that we take for granted.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us do. Students that are trying to keep up with their peers, who can go home in the afternoon, sit down at their kitchen table, have internet, have a great device, and complete their homework. May have one, if not two, engaged parents to help them if they encounter any issues with that, whereas there are thousands more that don't have those advantages. They don't have connectivity in their home. They may be fortunate enough to have a device given to them by their school, but they may not. They may have to complete their homework on a smartphone, which is terribly hard to do. And they may have to walk or take a bus to the library so they have internet connectivity, or huddle outside a local community center or church where the internet's bleeding outside and they can complete their homework. So I think it's just a recognition that their possible future workforce, their current customer base, doesn't have necessarily the same advantages that they do, but also could be, given the right opportunities, great employees for them, but great employees for other businesses, so that they're earning the money to spend at these other owners' businesses.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously just a boost to the economy to
Absolutely.
have more productive, skilled workers out there. And,
Right.
I think you had mentioned that Chattanooga is not necessarily a place many companies come to recruit.
Right.
And, that's sort of unfortunate, but, that's why you all are doing what you do.
Right.
So is there a typical engagement point or process that, someone who may hear about the Enterprise Center and Tech Goes Home Chattanooga, what's the first step for them to connect with you all and to get involved in some way?
Right. Several different ways. We are a nonprofit, so we can always take donations. It takes funding to do what we do.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we do have a wide range of support from city and county government, local foundations, other businesses that have contributed to our efforts. Manpower, so volunteers to come out to our classes to help our trainers. It is quite overwhelming for one or two trainers that are volunteers themselves to help troubleshoot different issues that the families encounter during the class when you've got anywhere from 15 to 25 people in the room, if not more. As soon as you go over a curriculum module, you've got half the room raises their hands.
Yeah.
So just having that expertise there in the room to help. Also volunteering at our connectivity drives when we partner with the schools, having people that have a knowledge of internet service providers and that technology based around that, that helps as well. So yeah, just whether it's donations or volunteer hours, there are several ways you can engage with us.
And you guys are located at the Edney building.
Correct.
Downtown. So would someone just be able to come in the Edney building and get some information directly from?
Absolutely. So the Enterprise Center is located on floor 5.
Okay.
In the community space. Our digital equity team is actually located on floor 7 in the co-working space, Society of Work. So our team is on floor 7, and yeah, we've got plenty of information we can hand out for sure.
Great.
Specifically with Beyond Tech Goes Home, our partnership with Covalence, the code school, having employers come in and talk about what opportunities there are at their business, what a day-to-day is like with them in an IT field, setting up internships for those individuals that graduate from Covalence, just to give them that experience. There are several ways that we can engage businesses around town.
And you mentioned that part of the process is you all kind of go in and train the trainers, so you're equipping people to continue the education that the curriculum that you provide.
Right.
How long does it take and how hard is it to go through that process to be equipped to train?
Not long at all. We take them through a 2-hour training class, and a majority of that is things we need them to do on the administrative side, whether it's surveys, keeping attendance, those type things that we need for various things like funding and keeping up with our program. But it doesn't take long to get somebody up to speed, as long as they're familiar with the Google applications, emailing, browsing the internet. Most anybody that does that on a day-to-day basis could teach one of our classes.
Yeah, because I mean that makes sense. You're essentially teaching people to do things that you pretty much already know how to do.
Right.
So it's not like
Exactly.
there's a lot of new lessons that you have to master before you can represent the curriculums.
Right, right. If you can understand, simple things like attaching photos to an email,
Yeah.
or saving a document to the drive or in the cloud. Surprisingly, those are concepts that are hard for individuals that have never had a device or not currently in the workforce doing that on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Those are concepts that are hard to grasp.
Well, I have to admit, I stopped using Facebook probably, 4 years ago or something. And
I wish I could too.
not, as a marketing professional,
Right.
now I have to manage, the
Mhm.
company's Facebook page. And so, when I logged back into Facebook for the first time, I felt like that, like, what is all this? What do
Yeah.
I do? Because everything had changed since I'd used it the first. But
Right.
luckily, being a kind of a digital native, and I've done a lot of web development work and stuff over the years, it's not that hard to pick up
Right.
those types of things. But I can't imagine the mindset of if I had never even really had access to technology, how overwhelming it would be
Right.
just to try to learn the basics like that. So.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Thanks for coming out today, man.
Absolutely.
It was a great discussion. I love hearing about what you all have going on down there at the Enterprise Center. I would definitely like to get InfoSystems involved, maybe sponsoring some of those scholarships or some of the other things we've talked about. And I think you'll probably see some of us around the Edney building more anyway, because one of our previous guests on the podcast was Marcus from CoLab.
Absolutely.
And so,
Great guy.
we'll probably be doing a few things through them, providing some advice, some
Mhm.
consultative sessions for entrepreneurs who really
Right.
need to know about what IT their business needs to use
Right.
to get launched. So a lot of cool stuff happening in the Edney building.
It is.
and-
It's a great place to work.
yeah, that's cool. So look forward to it. And thanks again, Sammy Lowdermilk, Tech Goes Home Chattanooga. And I'll post links to your information on our blog when we publish it. But thanks a lot.
Great to be here. Thank you.